and I, who are about 15 minutes apart as the crow flies. We've got Joe and John, who are about 15 minutes apart as the crow flies. And everyone went, wait a minute, where's Dan? Not where were you on screen, but where are you on the planet?
Oh, New York.
Oh, very good. Well, that would have to be a really fast crow for you to fly up to to be with Alban in
Sure, it would
Maine.
be.
Yay. I started this out saying, what have you guys been cooking? Because sometimes I am more intentional about someone where I'm, come on over to the table. Let's talk about aspects of aging, because I actually find people who want to, who have been thinking about it. It's just kind of a natural part of where they're going and where they are right now. And Roger, you came over to the table first today, and you said, I said, what have you guys been cooking? And you just jumped right on it. What did you say?
Every one of us is bringing fresh ingredients, and we don't know what the other is going to say. And that's why this conversation, I think, will be really interesting. When the soup is made, we'll look back, and the flavoring that you've got together here is going to be creative, and it's going to be spicy.
You're right. Here's the big pot, and I've got the fire going, and the stone is going in. Anyone know the story of stone soup? So I've put in the stone, and here you are, the village. And I've said, boy, this stone soup would taste better if there was just one more ingredient in it. And you've all brought ingredients in. So I set the table, and I've got the hot water going. I know that each of you has ingredients that pair well with each other. Roger, what ingredients do you bring into this cooking show?
I'm going to bring in what I discovered 20 years ago when I burned out as a trial lawyer and was looking for a new passion. I wanted to find something, and I became a van driver 2 days a week, was advanced to full-time activity director with no training other than the corporate trainer came down and said, don't forget the 3 B's, Bibles, birthdays, and bingo. With that in mind, and that was the training back then. With that in mind, I fell in love with the idea of what's now called non-pharmaceutical interventions. By having that contact, just like Dan had, in what I call in the trenches, in the days that there were no other options except Bibles, birthday, and bingo, and make sure that people are happy, and lots of pills. And now, inspired by Alive Inside and the work that Memory are doing, which is exactly what I was doing, but there was no name for it. We're right on the edge of non-pharma through what Memory Lane TV can do and Photavia. I wish that I had these tools when I was an activity director. And so what we're creating, I believe, with John in the mix and Joe, is that we're giving tools that can be used by families, by staff people, and the double-sided benefits of a staff person who knows, because you educate them why music or why the relaxing and inviting Memory Lane videos or Photavia. Why is it working? And they will then be engaged. So we're on the edge of a new toolkit before you have to get into the pharmaceuticals.
I totally understand that from a background of hired caregiving. And I can see the van that you were driving. I can see that vehicle and the keep them happy and invent it. And instead you are giving, you're equipping and training, and starting with answering that question, why do we do this way? That's where a person who is challenged by a change in their memory
Mhm.
will respond when you do this, will respond in a way that is very upsetting to that person and everyone around them if you approach this way, or if you we made it. I know what you're talking about, and it is like, the choir starts singing and the light comes streaming through the clouds. And it's like, we need to do this with our
And I
people,
want
our loved ones, our residents every day, because look at the response. They're opening up.
well, that,
Yeah, tell me
and
more about these
I think
ingredients.
that's what all of us see. And I remember first seeing Dan on the trailer for the movie. He was inspired by what he saw, and we're now on the edge of EEGs and other imaging machines that confirm what music does. And with the Neural Arts Blueprint confirming, and I see that we're really close to something I didn't think in my lifetime I would see, and that's funding of everything that all of us are working with, because these are replacing the medication that's there. The other is that in the 11 years that I taught gerontology courses in Portland, my favorite college course ever that I designed was cognitive activity design. And that gets in what all of us are doing: personalized, precision applied science that's given to people who really have a heart to care, and it's easy to, with almost no negative benefits. So we're in a precision medication world with non-pharmaceutical medicine, because when I can get someone to laugh or listen to music, their brains are squirting. I called it a neural squirt that pops out when they hear that sound. It's within the blood-brain barrier. So we're replacing the pills that have to get in and get dopamine to the brain by having the brain create their own through rhythm up for Parkinson's or whatever the challenge is. Precision apply it. We've got a winning combination.
Oh, Dan, I mean, he mentioned your name specifically. I watched that, but it's a little farther back. I can't bring all the details forward, but I remember the excitement in me going, yes, 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 yes. Dan, can you talk about that a little bit, and any other ingredients, you can throw them right into the stew.
I mean, the movie was helping people understand just that people are not gone when they're, not the same in certain ways, right? They're not as, memory's not as good or whatever. And so that was really important. They're not, there's that they're, of value, just like everybody else. And we need to do everything we can, but we don't really make that a priority. And so the movie is really good. It's shown in a lot of healthcare classes and such. But right now, still, all of our future healthcare professionals, generally in courses, the doctors, the social workers, other people who are going to serve in different roles, there's almost no training on dementia basics. There's no mention of non-pharm, music or any other. And so until to me, changing the system as it is, sort of the only thing that will change that is policy change, government policy change, public awareness and support for change, and expectation that, oh, of course, give my dad some music, right? But I think the real change will come as each new generation, each new year of graduates comes into the system. And if they've never encountered someone with moderate or advanced dementia, they're bringing with them all their misconceptions. We haven't tackled with it or anything. And so me, it should be like a Psych 101 course, but basics on dementia, basics on non-pharm, and what is it, how do you use it, when to use it, because and then they'll be empowered to speak up with upper levels of management or supervisors and say, no, of course we'll do this. I'll take care of it. But right now it's not that way. We don't have time. We've got other priorities. So to me, my focus now is on, the aspects of how we deliver care to healthcare system. I mean, but certainly people with dementia, specifically in many ways, and systemic things need to change. And so, so yes, NeuroArts Blueprint, Sound Health Network out of UC San Francisco. There's a lot of movement going. NIH is giving $20 million a year towards music and the brain research, and that's going to grow. They went out to bid on setting up a center. When they're going to pick one university to be the focus of all music and the brain research. There's going to be two centers, two universities that are going to be centers for music and pain centers, and they're going to coordinate all the research, or a lot of it, and give out their own money and stuff. So they'll coordinate, because right now there's research all over the place. People are just doing, oh, this is a good idea to do research, and researchers don't touch base. They don't say, well, what's really needed, and if this research that we're studying on, well, why exactly does the brain respond this way to music or anything? And well, that's not going to help us. So what are you going to do with that information? So we have to focus on what is going to be deliverable to people. So my dream, and Albin probably knows this. I mean, my dream is just CMS is part of nursing homes. Okay, so here's a drop down list in your monthly or your quarterly report, and here are 10 different sort of quality of life programs. Which 3 or 4 or 5 are you doing, and doing well, right? And you pick and then they pay for it. So simple theoretically, but it's not happening. Right now they can say, oh, we have music, oh, we have movies, oh, we have interaction. Anyway, that's my stuff for the pot.
Do you hope that there would be a policy, maybe statewide mandated, that I'll just say a hallway? That's my easy way of saying, rather than in an individual private residence, but a hallway would be rooms where people are living, and there are people who, make sure that they are living comfortably. Would you want to see a mandate that your services, products, research, fact-based things need to be in there? Or, this is a really weird question, or this is the would you rather that they mandate that those things be in the building, or would you rather that they mandate that pharmaceuticals be reduced, the use of the pharmaceuticals be reduced, and you can say, I choose C? What would you want the policy to mandate?
So if it's a choice between mandating non-farm and reducing, drugs, I mean, I think they just go together to some extent. But you've got to start with the mandating non-farm, because they've already, CMS and nursing homes specifically, they don't do this in assisted living. They don't do this for doctors in general. They track really they track those antipsychotics really strongly, and they really ask nursing homes in a strong way to reduce usage. And then what tends to happen is they say, okay, well, things that are outside, that they want to generate some result of calming people down no matter how they do it. So, okay, well, we have to report lower antipsychotics, so we use hypnotics, we'll use anti-seizure, we'll use other kinds of things that don't fall into the antipsychotic category. So it's still like 1 in 5, if you take all that into account, it's still 1 in 5 nursing home residents, when it shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 who really need it. So I don't know, I would go with the first, and the other hopefully would follow with, research and stuff. And research is tough because, and there've been different studies on music and reducing medications, antipsychotic meds, and a big one with 4,000 nursing home residents in California reported, yes, we did reduce significantly. Others might not, but it's they don't really track they don't really track it well. There's a lot of confounding variables in a nursing home environment, so it has to be done well. And that's why NIH is really saying, look, we want to really redo a lot of the research that's been out there, or do it in our way. Randomized controlled trials, large size. Once we do that, they'll turn on the money spigot.
I totally track with that, because I could see mandating that you provide all these programs. It could sit on the shelf. It could not it could be purchased, but not be fully used to its capacity or used correctly, or having the activity director, Roger was talking about, be fully trained. But I agree with starting with mandating down, de-prescribing. Delon Canterbury is someone that I see a lot on LinkedIn talking about, and because he does geriatrics, it ends with TRX, and he is so sought after now in the way that he describes that as a pharmacy trained person. um, I could see the hunger of what can we use that's not that, and how do we make it work so that our workers would want to stay and that families would want to bring their people there. And you said something interesting, Alban, I am going to go to you next, so I'm just giving you a chance to tune up your pipes. um, that was pretty interesting when you said choosing one, maybe two universities that get to just really unpack this and create, a program. And it sounds like you really want 18-year-olds to start to know about this is how you can approach a human being challenged by a memory or a brain or a cognitive change. This is how you can approach them and continue their quality of life and continue feeling purposeful yourself, and knowing I have a whole list of options that will work. So it makes me excited because, hey, I'm aging and I surely could have cognitive changes. And I would love for the people around me to go, you know what? This is really working for her. I am so glad that these guys came up with all these. So, Alban, tell us about your ingredients. What are you throwing in?
First of all, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be with you. Can you all hear me fine?
Yes.
Am I screen going? Okay, great. So I want to first, segue to what Dan just said, that I'm 100% behind him. We've talked with Dan over the years of the importance of, integrating, and that approach of integrative health, specifically in the context of cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease, where there is no pharma solution for it. So this is really why, as a film producer, I embarked in this adventure about 10 years ago. But I've also focused, being from Europe, on non-invasive, non-pharmacological and non-invasive procedures for all sorts of brain and cognitive decline and aging as well, because they're more popular, it seems like, in Europe. The pharma approach is very omnipotent here in the US. But we naturally know that the pillars that constitute a healthy lifestyle, whether you are affected by any sorts of physiological decline, are mind, body, nutrition, environment, relationship, culture, spirituality, sleep, and forgetting one, movement. And they're very person-centered. We all have different needs at different age, depending on our age and what we do. And it seems that when we're getting to a point where we have to focus on one or the other, we forget about the scheme and the big picture of things. We either focus on big pharma or on a pharmaceutical advance to treat something as if it was universal. And we forget that everything comes in small doses. This is why when I started this journey, first of all, I was inspired, and we started pretty much at the same time with Dan. Dan was focusing on music, and as a film producer, I was focusing on visuals and audio. And then I realized that being in the field for almost 10 years now, that most of what I was facing was multisensory, was related to those pillar of those holistic approaches of health. You need to breathe, you need to sleep well, you need to see things, you need to hear things, you need to feel good. And all that is not really encompasses yet in the research, although since about 5 decades now, I mean, Oliver Sacks was one of the precursor of the use of music in dementia particularly, but there is an abundance of research already existing that we're not leveraging. And as a segue to what Dan was saying, we are working currently with Brown University, and hopefully we're going to start our study this year. And I know that Brown University studied with music and memory for about 2 years and came to very conclusive and important results saying, yes, this is really good. This increases, there is a direct correlation between well-being, health, diminishing of pharmaceutical components, and linked to our how we manage those symptoms are directly linked to non-pharmaceutical approaches. But we need this to be vetted. And one of the things that's preventing us from doing this is the current situation of the senior living industry. As you all know, post-COVID, this is an industry that has suffered a lot, and the HR involved in it. We're talking about activity directors. Yes, but activity directors are bombarded with things. They have very small budget to do anything. And most of the time, CNA and nurses who are already working so hard don't have time to implement, music and memory, Photavia, memory lane TV. They feel like they don't have time. This is not their job on top of everything else. So unless there's that mandate that Dan was saying, unless we validate those components and understand the importance of integrative approach to really, and based on multisensory stimulation at different times of the day. We don't want people to listen to music or watch TV all day long. We want appropriate content for every single individual, sometimes to do reminiscence with the Photavia, sometimes to, reminiscence with their own music, sometimes to fall asleep, not to be engaged. And all that spectrum is really important to integrate when you're dealing with cognitive decline at all elements, because part of that is really rooted into the well-being of the patients. And I am a firm believer in mind-body medicine. So I think that if your mind is good, your body will follow up, and physiological. I mean, it sounds natural. You eat well, you sleep well, you dream, and you get better. And that's really centric to our approach at Memory Lane TV, because what was originally only based on a visual stimulation and music and soundscapes really morphed over the 10 years of research that we've done into a really integrative multisensory approach. We use aromatherapy as a way to the direct pathway to the brain to awake people or to incentivize their appetite. And not everybody, it doesn't work with everybody, but that's one of the tools. We use music and music stimulation to help people fall asleep or to be really engaged. We use reminiscence to combat sundowning syndrome. We use touch and education and training as the pillar of all those things. And I'll end up my little passionate pitch here by reminding everybody two things. The first one is that 80% of the people that are actually managing and dealing with the symptoms of dementia are at home. They're not yet in nursing homes. They're at home and they're clueless. Most of the time we're talking about the partners, and it's really hard even to know what to do or the journey we're on and how the journey fluctuates. So there's a strong need for education and training on the whole aspect of aging and all those pillars that constitute a healthy aging. And the second of all is that the toll, especially in the context of dementia and Alzheimer's, relay on those partners, on those care partners. I think the number is astonishing, but more than half of the care partner pass because of the emotional, physical toll before the people that are affected. So we need to focus on that and bring them tools that are very simple, very easy to use, and that are person-centered, human-centered, and that encompasses all those elements. And technology has finally caught up. So I'm feeling like, yes, let's ring those bells. Let's have Brown University help us. Let's all get together. Let's put something that is, present in every household in America and around the world in order to make people feel better. I'm going to stop here. I could go on forever,
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Welcome to Steve Berger And to Helen Murphy, Helen used the metaphor of fabric, that it needs to be in the fabric. And I'll expand that with what Alban has just said, the fabric of society, that doctors and elder care advisors and those who, hop in the car with people to go visit these places that they would all have on the tip of their tongue, go to these resources. This will be good. And, speaking with the person who has received the diagnosis, or even speaking with the person who's thinking about, they're the ones that are challenged by aging. It's like, as I continue to live, there will be challenges and there will also be opportunities that I want to continue with. And now I am educated. Now I have the information. I've got the tools. I feel good about them. They're convenient. They make sense to me. Imagining a world where everybody goes, "Oh yes, that's good for continued life. Oh yes, that is essential to longevity." Um, I'm gonna go to John next. Last evening, I attended online a webinar that was the person who spoke is Dr. Lori Santos. She's a professor at Yale, and she also has a podcast. I think it's called The Happiness Lab. And she talked about creating a curriculum for happiness because her job as a professor is living on campus. That's part of her, that she says, tiny college within a college, living on campus, eating with the students in the commons regularly, and noticed how unhappy they were and made a study of happiness and created the class. They had to get the biggest facility possible. 1/4 of Yale wanted to attend her class. And then it went outside of Yale, and it's already had 3 million graduates from her course.
Wow.
And I'm just going, happiness, feeling, we talk about feeling, or you have been, feeling better. And it's like, wouldn't that be great if people talked about that as much as Chat GPT? Or did you see the finale of, of whatever show, that it's just like, oh yeah, that's essential to living. It's just that sometimes it needs a boost, like packaging it. Dan was talking, packaging it and providing it. I'm sure there's business ways of saying that, so that it, there it is, and you unwrap it, and there's how to do it, and it all makes sense. We're talking about music. It's like, oh, music. Yeah. We want to have music at this event because everyone's going to feel better about the music, whether it's a celebration event or kind of a sad and reminiscent event. We want to have music there because everyone will feel better. Scott and I were at a restaurant the other day, and I went, that was weird. There was no music going on in the restaurant. It was, so John, as we've been saying all this, I know that, oh gosh, over a year ago, you were willing to come in with this newbie in the whole arena here and record a video podcast with me. And it may be through you that I got to know Joe, and I will not forget Joe. But John, as all these ingredients have been going in, do you smell something good cooking? And are you bringing some spice?
I'll bring some spice and I'll stir the pot, and we'll see where it goes from there. How about that? So, I've been in senior living and healthcare technology for about 23 years now, so I've seen a ton of change over the years. One of the unique things that I've noticed from a non-pharma approach is that in community-based living, you've seen some of these more progressive communities actually bring individuals in, wean them off of their medications as much as possible, And these people come back to
Mm.
life. They get more active.
Mm.
They start to eat more. I mean, I heard Dan talk about nutrition and health and wellness, so
Yeah.
it really comes down to that non-pharma approach. And I met Joe about 6 years ago, and that's when I learned about Photavia. And the amazing thing to me about it was, in theory, because this was pre-COVID, we really didn't have too much to test it out with. In theory, I was like, this makes a ton of sense. Photavia, in my mind, was a non-pharma tool, for connection, engagement, and cognition, that could be used in a therapeutic way, allowing people to reminisce with relevance. And that's what it really comes down to. I think everybody's on their own cognitive journey, no matter where they are. So it's about, how am I able to engage and connect with them? And then once we get to meet that individual. And with Photavia, it's that imagery, that whether it's music, whether it's imagery, that 2-minute V clip, something is going to resonate with somebody on a certain level, no matter where they are on that cognitive level. Okay.
Mm.
So there was recently, in the past year, a term coined neuroaesthetics, which is the scientific study of neural consequences of contemplating a work of art or a picture or music, whatever that looks like. So there is science behind, the cognitive ability and function of an individual when they see or hear something. And when you reach in there and grab that individual that's still there, a lot of people tend to think, this person's just not there anymore. They're there. So when you're able to reach in there and get a hold of this individual, that's a great opportunity to learn something about them. So we talked a little bit about community-based living, but what about where the continuum of care starts? At home, in-home care, that sort of thing as well. So when you have a caregiver who may be 25 years old and maybe an individual that you're providing care for that's 75 years old, they may both love sports, but that's a 50-year generational gap there. So what can you do to bring those two things together, bring those two people together over a common topic that will allow them to connect in a meaningful yet impactful way and foster a relationship that makes sense? And that's why I was fascinated with what Photavia was doing. And I really saw it for what it was. And what Alban said and Dan said, there's so many more tools out there. And I think the one thing that we keep coming back to is it's got to be a tool. It's not going to be the end all be all solution, but it's got to be a non-pharma one. And I think that's the critical component to where we go with all of this moving forward, because there are so many ways to impact an individual's life that doesn't include pharmaceuticals. So from that standpoint, I will share with you that in theory we knew prior to COVID, at least I did, how this worked. But we've done these Showtime movie events, and when you get out there and you see the individuals, you get 30, 35 people in a activities setting, and you see them start tapping their feet to the music, or you see them start answering questions, or they see a picture and they just light up. We did an event recently where we had a microphone and we were like handing it to people. By the end of the event, people were grabbing for the mic and like, hey, let me talk. This and it's wonderful. I mean, because it's like all of these people have these different experiences. So even if it's not a caregiver resident type connection, these people, you may have a new resident that moves in per se. And now they just learned that, John Wright over here likes the Beatles and this, that, and the other. Hey, I love the Beatles too. Now I've got somebody to talk to. I have a new connection. I've got a new way to interact with other people on an interpersonal level. And it doesn't matter if you're 5 or 123, as Roger would like me to say. It all makes sense. I mean, it's ageless and it's timeless, and it really gives people an opportunity to just learn who individuals are without a pharmaceutical approach. So whether it's music, TV, imagery that way, it's very powerful. And as Dan mentioned, if we can get some backing behind this, and Alvin said with the study with Brown University, I mean, there's a lot here to unpack, and there's a lot here that can be impactful for the people that we're providing care for, but also as well as the people that are providing care for these people, because it's that connection that's critical in the way that we interact with these people. So I'll kind of toss it off from there, but hopefully I added enough spice to the soup for you.
I know. I know. It's just the right amount. It's just the right amount. I will say, if there is a pharmacist who ever watches this or sees this, I'm grateful for you. I know you're stretched too thin in this year of 2023 and have been for a while. And I believe that you have the intelligence and that you are equipped enough to pivot in all of your expertise and your brilliant imagination and pivot into something else if pharmaceuticals isn't quite as huge and prevalent in the later 2020s and into the 2030s. I believe that you are going to innovate something else that you the management of, or the owners of, or the board members of, can pivot into something else. And I do believe that you all want to have a happiness factor and be treated in a more than a humane way, but that you would want to have all these options and well-trained people around you, loved ones in your home that go, oh yes, I've played with this myself. It's been gamified. It's been caused to be more interactive, and that those people, you were mentioning a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old, that some of those people will be like, I like doing this, and I don't necessarily have the aging challenges. So Joe, what I want to ask you is, do you sing?
Do I sing?
Yeah.
No, I'm the guy that hangs around with musicians. I'm the drummer. So, although I should
you
take it back.
are.
There's I think there's about 6 of these. I don't know. Yeah, that's a guitar. So there's about 6 of those floating around the house. But I am certainly, I am a proponent of music in life and how important it is. I have some of my grandfather's record collection. And then I collected, I think I have between 10 and 15,000 pieces of vinyl in my house. And you can ask my wife, she's not real happy about that. I think I have 5,000 CDs scattered between my office here, the living room, and downstairs. And then I still subscribe to, Spotify and Prime. And anyway, I have music going on from the moment that I get up till probably when I don't have it on right now, just because I didn't want to suck up bandwidth, but otherwise it would be playing in the background. So
my goodness. Well, I was going to ask you to sing Let Me Edutain You, Let Me Make You Smile.
Yeah, no, I probably the shower. I did some singing this morning, but that's it.
There you go.
I have to tell you though, it's fun. I kind of enjoy. I'm the guy sitting in back too, going, I love listening to these guys. So I met Alban about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, through a mutual friend, Ellen Belk, and I think we connected. He's a filmmaker doing some great things, and then when we learned more about the science and some of the things he was exploring, it was. I mean, we've been talking on and off for at least that long about how to maybe package things, or maybe how to walk along that hallway together. Dan, I don't remember when I met you, but I do have to tell you that I knew about you before I ever met you. I think probably 8 or 9 years ago when we started doing this. Well, I was also involved with an organization called Independence First here in Milwaukee, and it's a resource for people with various abilities. And I think I had heard about the program back then when I was consulting with them, brand consulting. So we started Photavia, I think 2014. I met our founder, and I think soon after that, we kind of developed things, had some sample films, and we met a remarkable woman who's also here in Milwaukee named Ann Basting, who, when I met Roger, I think Roger probably 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, he brings up right away, he's in Oregon by you, right? Oregon. And we're talking to him, and he's excited, and he's talking me brain, smidgens of this, neural squirts here and that. You need to meet Ann Basting. And I'm like, we know her, we met her. And one of the biggest things that she said that I remember, it's, you're a non-pharma solution to, and that stuck in my head. I hadn't really heard that term back until, like I said, 5-6 years ago. So we've been on this journey and meeting some of these great people along the way. And what I'm excited about is the science that Alban talks about, the science that Dan talks about, the science that Roger talks about. Roger can take any complex science thing now, and I'm a art guy. I'm a picture guy. So he paints a beautiful picture every time of, Joe, you don't know what you're doing. This is what you're doing. And it's like, oh yes, I get it now. So,
and Joe, let me, when you ask about something like that, and I can tell you, here's what's going on in your brain. That's what we did at the college, was to educate those going to gerontology about how the brain works, and that you can watch the face of a person and predict exactly what type of neurochemicals are squirting within the blood-brain barrier. And both Dan and Alban have that same roots where people live, not in some education or a medical school. You did more of what worked, less of what didn't. You made sure you're looking at the dose and the dosage. How often and what are you delivering to stimulate, to make a feeling? I lost count. I was trying to count on my fingers how many times your group, Christine, has said the word feel. And the felt sense, the feeling that's created, sensation that you get through one of your senses. And music is the one I love to teach my students about. And that's that God didn't create earlids. So if a person is within hearing distance of the music that Dan is offering, that reaction may not be visible, but once that face comes up, that caregiver, that loved one never forgets that moment. And that's the inspiration, whether it's taste aerobics, touch aerobics, anything that can have a sensation for a short period of time. There's a smidgen, and that it is used in a dosage of multi-domain. And that's what Alban is working toward. And when I read that interview, Dan, that you did of Alban, that's almost a roadmap to all 5 senses. And that's what we did with our Memorobics 20 years ago, because I didn't know what I was doing, but I did more of what worked and kept track of what worked with this person or that person. And that's simply fine tuning. And that's where we're headed, is ask those delivering to watch for those signals. And I hope I live long enough that the chemicals in the brain can be measured. And I think we're close to react when they hear this sound or this taste, or especially that smell that goes directly to the brain. As Alban pointed out, that's the quickest way to get the memory provoked, is the sound, the scent, and the sight combined. And that's combination. But the caregivers need to know how many minutes, how many times a week, and that's the dose and dosage.
Yeah, the Boy Scouts you assembled here today are fascinating, Christine. I just want to follow up though real quick. Roger talks about the dose. So when we figured out that our 2-minute V clips were a perfect length to tell the story, what we're doing, to get in, out, curate like you're going through an art museum. That was part of it. So then we're treating it that way for multi-senses. If you have, if you're sight impaired, we have the voiceover. If you're hearing impaired, we have the type on screen. So we're trying to be as inclusive and sense positive, I guess, as much as possible. I do have to tell you, John mentioned, the pandemic caused some problems, I think, for all of us, but it created some great opportunities. We got to create about 200 more pieces of content, and came up with this nutty idea for something called Fotrivia. So what we do is we package questions that you just learned in our 2 minutes at the back end and engage people that way. So then we invented these Showtime movie nights. And when things opened up last year, John and I have done, I don't know, a couple dozen over the last year and a half. And each one, I've met somebody new every time. I can tell you a story about somebody that I met there. And it's just amazing. And I feel, that the activity professionals involved, it's sometimes we'll go in, we walk in with 16 minutes of content. It turns into an hour and 40 minutes of discussion. and they kick us out. They have to kick us out. So, but it's great. One event we went to, and this woman finds out that, oh, well, this woman went to school up in Tigerton, Wisconsin. Oh, did you know? No. And did you know there are tigers there at their high school? No, I didn't know that. Did you know that she lived on a farm? No, I didn't know. Did you know that she had 20 cows? No, I didn't know that. Did you know she had to milk those cows every morning before school? So we learned all that with it. And then what's funny is a 97-year-old gentleman named the Colonel, who happened to be, he knew when he saw VJ Day in Times Square, our first movie we made of the nurse kissing the sailor.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting there in our front row with a tie on, a suit tie, and his little perfect pocket square. He knew exactly where he was that moment because he was flying over Germany and he got the news in his headset that the war had ended. He then asked this woman, he said, how many days did you miss school when you had to milk those cows? Their room erupted. It was just... Yeah, and that turned into 5 more minutes of farm talk, or not pharma, farm talk with an F. So, I mean, these shows that we do, the one I did last week, we asked the question, and it was a number was the answer, and then the answer I think was 26,000. I think London or something. And we had a 97-year-old woman. She was kind of close. She guessed. There were a couple other gals, 150, 600. All of a sudden, in the corner of the room, a voice came and said 26,000. And we kind of looked, who said that? And it was a woman in the corner. She was working on a puzzle the entire time, but she was listening. She wasn't able to see the screen because it was off to the, she would have had to lean, but she was paying attention, and she got it right. She got like 4 answers right. She only got one piece of her puzzle the entire hour, 2 hours that we were there. But apparently she was engaged with what we were doing. But and again, the smiles. And I took some films. I'm sitting behind these ladies, and every time the music in between for trivia comes on, these gals are just do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I love it. I mean, it's fun to see this live. And that's the experience, John and I are the only ones. I mean, or not the only ones here, but the one. I mean, it's hard to express. It's beautiful.
Yeah, conceptually you understand how it works, but when you actually see it in action, it's something altogether way more special. Because to see the people's faces light up, to see them engage, to see them want to be involved, and even though as a maybe a life enrichment coordinator, activities director working with these people, they're learning things, but the residents are learning about each other. There were so many interpersonal conversations going on with this particular time that Joe and I were there between these people. It was just fascinating. And here's the kind of cool thing that we didn't even set out to measure when we were doing things like this. In most of the activities, it's dominated by women, and the activities director even said, this guy's going to complain and then leave in 2 minutes. This guy won't even stick around for 5 minutes. They stayed the entire time. We're finding more and more men are engaging with this content. So now we're getting that, because a lot of these communities, it's mixed, men and women, but a lot of the men don't come to for these activities. So it was kind of a byproduct of what we were doing that we found out, wow, men are really sticking around and really enjoying this, So it was just, it's one of those things you don't set out to learn, but when you realize it, it's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think sort of to your point too earlier, Christine, I mean, the event that I was at last week, and maybe this even relates to what Dan's talking about. I think the more people we get into experience or see this, these scenarios, it's going to maybe help change too. They had about a half dozen young adults from a local high school that were in our session with us. I didn't expect them to be there, but they were working with the program through the high school to live with the residents and work with them and whatnot. And, not talk about training or whatever. We say that there's no training to what it's click the button. If you can turn on the TV, you can do it. Even our faux trivia, even these games that we've come up with. But I was so excited to see the other generation there, and they were answering questions. They were jumping in, and it was like, this is the intergenerational conversations are what it's about too. It's just
yes. Yes, we're coming to the end of our time because my hubby producer, D. Scott Smith, motivational listener, has to motivationally listen to someone in just a few minutes. And so we're going to go round the screen and we're going to start with Roger. If Roger wants anyone to get in contact with him, that he will tell them how to do that. And then we'll go around this way. I love this. I was thinking about our daughter and son-in-law who are turning 25 this year. They go to trivia night at a restaurant, enjoy it. They've been there a few times. And I thought, what if it was faux trivia? What if it was a Fotavia 2 minutes and a faux trivia? Would they engage, would they engage with that if they didn't know that mom made that happen?
Well, the little known fact is Fotavia started in hospitality and then pivoted. So, but I do think senior living and hospitality are running some real parallel paths right now. So keep that in mind.
Yep. Yeah.
Over to Roger.
There's a whole lot of us. Roger, do you want anyone to get a hold of you?
Yeah. What we're looking to do is to find out how people will use these tools. And by having those tests on using these tools that Alban and Dan and Joe are creating, we'll be able to improve them. So anyone who wants to get a hold of me, go to MindRamp, MindRamp, like a brain ladder, only easier to get up, .org.
Love it. Dan Cohen.
So first I want to say, bottom line, way to know whether facilities are doing a good job is everybody lighting up, once or more time. The light up phrase hit me because that's what it is. You're there if you can do that, right? So so certainly anybody that wants to just talk about how to systemically get things adopted. So Right to Music, dcohen@righttomusic.com, or just write all one word, righttomusic.com. Music and Memory, is there, musicandmemory.org. I'm not connected with it anymore. I've pivoted to focus on the resistance, societal resistance, institutional resistance to the implementation of different music-based interventions and all of these. I mean, the sensory level. I mean, the visual. I mean, we can't get one unless we get them all. we need them all, and we can't get them all unless we reduce ageism and other things that are working against us. So that's what I'm focused on now.
RIGHT, Right to Music.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
I have the right to music at all ages.
Right.
Okay.
John Wright, spelled even differently. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so to Roger's point, and one of the things we talked about earlier, the proof is really in the pudding. So I didn't talk to Joe about this ahead of time, but I'm going to throw it out there. If anybody's watching this particular podcast and would like to maybe sample Fotavia, you can reach out to me at John, JOHNW, at Fotavia, PHOTAVIA.net. And I'd be happy to talk to you about how you can use this with your residents that you're currently working with. It's such an amazing tool. I already knew it worked, but when I saw it actually happen in person, it was pretty amazing. So love to share that experience with anybody who's interested.
Love it. Alban, I just met you. I didn't cross your path on the phone or any other recordings or any other live streams. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing your ingredients. And guys, the soup's on. I'll be serving it in just a few minutes. Alban, I know you want people to know about Memory Lane TV.
Yeah, and it's very simple. I mean, we've been in this field and producing content now for 10 years. We have about 30 collections. We do, like I said, the multisensory approach between what we do as film producers, our different collections that engage or put to sleep the nature. We have, I think, over 2,000 hours of content divided in those collections. And you can sample it all for free if you go to watchmemorylane.com, and you can try our activity box, try the aromatherapy if you want, use soundscapes, we call them sound journeys, with and use music and engage all that. Just try it for yourself and see what people recently we had Tipa Snow, one of our advocates, to really vouch for what we're doing, because we have to celebrate those people who are voices in the field who said, hey, take a look at this. So we have all those people that are vouching for us, and I encourage one and every one of you to really try it out for yourself, you know, and watch memorylane.com. Yeah, easy enough.
Joe, sing us out.
You know, I got in trouble the other day. I think I said that Fotavia is like bingo on steroids, and I made some people angry. So I'd like to publicly apologize. I love bingo. I think bingo is necessary, but I'll just say it. So I thank you so much for having us here. I think it was great. Great. Too quick. We'll do it again. You left the power. What goes along with another pot of soup? Or maybe we'll make chili or something some other time. But I'd invite anybody to go to Fotavia, PHOTAVIA.TV, and you can go /preview, and you can sample some things for free there. And I'd offer, you know, I think these Showtime, without talking to John or Rod or anybody, these Showtime movie events have been so successful. If anybody wants anywhere in the country, I don't know that we can travel there unless you've got some really good stipend. We'll do it. We'll road trip, but think about us on a Zoom or on a virtual Fotrivia night. We'd love to participate with anybody who'd like to do that. So get a hold of us. And thanks again for providing the fire and the soup, the bowls and everything. Great day.
Soup's on, guys. Oh, this is fantastic. We're going to do this again. You know, we're going to do this again. Thank you. Thank you.